Good afternoon to everyone joining us for Day 5 of the CHCI Leadership Conference. I'm excited to welcome you to our next session, A New Generation of Employees and a Changing Workforce. My name is Yvette Maldonado, and I've been the Human Resources Director at CHCI for the past year. This session is at the core of what an HR professional works on every day, workforce development and the success of the organization's employees. On behalf of CHCI, I would like to thank Texas Instruments, the United States Air Force, and the American Petroleum Institute for their generous support of this session. Before we begin our discussion, it is an absolute honor to introduce our panel host, the Honorable Lori Trahan, and our moderator, Hector Mujica. Representative Lori Trahan proudly represents Massachusetts' 3rd Congressional District. Ever the pioneer, she was the first in her family to graduate from college and has continued to be a trailblazer with many achievements throughout her careers in both Congress and the private sector. She has co-founded a woman-operated consulting firm advising various companies on business strategy and helping to create ideal conditions for employees to thrive. Representative Trahan is committed to fighting for working families on issues such as quality public education and workforce development. She continues that fight today, serving on both the House Education and Labor and the House Armed Services Committees. This panel will bring together leaders from the American workforce to discuss how they are ensuring the success of the next generation of professional leaders. To help us moderate this important and timely session, we are delighted to have Hector Mujica, Regional Manager and Economic Opportunity Lead at Google.org. Hector leads philanthropic efforts for Google.org around economic opportunity and access to jobs, as well as Google.org's broader work in Canada, Latin America, and with the U.S. Hispanic community. He serves on the board of directors for Hispanics in Philanthropy and the Hispanic Federation, and several advisory boards including the Oceanic Global Foundation. I hope you enjoy the session. And don't forget to continue the conversation via social media using hashtag CHCIHHM20.
Hi, and welcome to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute's 2020 Leadership Conference session on a new generation of employees and a changing workforce. I'm Congresswoman Lori Loureiro Trahan, and I proudly represent Massachusetts' 3rd Congressional District. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to speak with you all today, although I wish we could be meeting together in person. On behalf of CHCI and the growing Latinx community in my district, I want to thank you all for joining us this week and participating in extraordinary sessions designed to engage and challenge all of us on the pressing issues affecting Latinx communities across America. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank everyone from CHCI who worked so hard to organize this conference under uniquely challenging circumstances. It's hard to imagine a more timely discussion for this session on the challenges facing young people entering the workforce. COVID-19 has devastated our economy, forcing a contraction unlike any we've seen in recent history. Economists I've spoken with predict that the workforce will never look the same as it did before the pandemic, and that we should expect drastic changes to the way we live and work from this point on. But I assure you that it's not all bad. Our workforce is resilient, and your generation knows that better than any that have come before you. You have the strength of your curiosity and unique knowledge, as well as the ability to access an infinite amount of information available at the tap of a finger. Believe it or not, there are 5 generations that make up America's professional landscape. A new phenomena is occurring. Even as younger generations graduate from high school and college, older individuals are opting to work longer. It's so important that we understand and make discussable the challenges and benefits presented by this multi-generational workforce. That's why I chose to introduce legislation to create new jobs in a post-pandemic era. The Pandemic Production Act to ensure that we're never caught flat-footed by a public health crisis like COVID again, while simultaneously getting people to work in quality, good-paying manufacturing jobs. And it's why the House recently passed the Moving Forward Act to make unprecedented investments in rebuilding our nation's infrastructure and create millions of jobs in the process. But creating and supporting a strong and diverse workforce is not just rooted in legislation, it comes from education and community too. That's why, alongside my colleagues in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, I will always be an advocate for uplifting our students, investing in our schools, preparing Latinx students for the jobs of the future, and closing disparities in our educational system that disadvantage Latinx and other children of color. I look forward to hearing from our extraordinary panelists during this lively discussion on opportunities for the next generation of Latinx workers and leaders in our workforce. So again, thank you for being part of this conference and participating in this panel. And thank you to everyone on the panel for sharing your insight, your stories, and your experiences with us today.
Thank you, Representative Trahan, for your insightful remarks. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hector Mujica, and I lead economic opportunity efforts for the Americas at Google.org, Google's philanthropy. And I am delighted to join you here at the CHCI Virtual Leadership Conference. I would like to first and foremost thank CHCI for providing this space for Latino voices on issues affecting our community. Please continue to follow us throughout the conference at #CHCIHHM20. Today, we're going to talk about Millennials and Gen Z, and a population that now accounts for over a third of the American workforce, with different professional values and priorities than compared to older workers and older generations. Millennials and Gen Z are fundamentally changing the way that American businesses operate. This is happening from demanding a more equitable workplace to changing the very nature of work. Companies are having to shift their traditional models as they focus on recruiting and retaining top talent from new generations of employees. Today, I'm joined by specialists from government and industry who will be discussing what we should expect from our next generation of professional leaders. Now, to introduce you all to the panel, first, I would like to welcome Juliet Ceballos Perez, Human Capital Advisor at the U.S. Department of Commerce. Next, we're going to welcome Miguel Aguirre, Director and Product Line Manager for Texas Instruments. We also have Lieutenant Colonel Nora de los Rios. She is a commander of the 341st Recruiting Squadron for the U.S. Air Force. And finally, we are pleased to have Rebecca Winkle, Economic Advisor for American Petroleum Institute. Welcome to the panel, and thank you for joining us. For our audience, please submit questions for our panelists in our Q&A and any comments you have in the chat. And I'm going to jump right in with the first question, which is going to be an introduction for everyone. Could each of you please introduce yourselves, your organization, the work you cover, and maybe a reflection about this moment in time that we're in and how each of you guys are doing with this moment in time. And we'll start with Juliet.
Sure. Hi, my name is Juliet Ceballos Perez. I am a human capital advisor at the U.S. Department of Commerce. I work doing a wide variety of range of work in the human capital aspect. One takeaway from everything that's going on right now, I will say that it's been, in a glass half full perspective, just really nice to see the change in the movement that's going on, and gives a lot of hope and excitement to see what will happen next with everything being arise and spoken about these days.
Thank you, Julia. We're glad to have you. Miguel? All right, let's try Rebecca. Rebecca, can you hear us? And can we hear you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me, Hector? Oh, fabulous. Well, thank you. It is good to be with all of you today. And thank you to you, Hector, for being our moderator, and CHCI for hosting this panel. You know, it's funny. We were just talking before the session started about the differences between being in an online panel versus in a real world space where we're all in person. And the mute issues are some of those that we deal with. So a reflection on this moment, it's interesting because there is so much uncertainty surrounding the workforce and the health issues and so many of the things that we face. And yet I think about what my grandmother often told me when I was young, that necessity is the mother of invention. And I know that we are full of smart, talented, capable people who are and will continue to rise to this challenge. And I really am optimistic about what will come next and see how things transform.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that perspective, Rebecca. Let's try going back to Miguel for an introduction. Miguel, can we hear you?
Yes, can you hear me, Hector?
Hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. Not sure what happened there, so apologies for that. But thank you for having us, and thank you everybody for joining the panel today. As Hector mentioned, my name is Miguel Aguirre, and I'm a product line director in Texas Instrument, one of the power management groups. Been in TI for about 17 and a half years and was hired right out of college from Puerto Rico. So one thing that I wanted to talk briefly is, first of all, a lot of people hear TI, they may think of calculators. That's our most consumer-centric product. But the fact of the matter is our business is semiconductors, right? We are a global company of over 30,000 employees, right, including worldwide, right? So, when I was achieved or reached to participate today, I was very excited about this topic, right? Because a changing workforce is something that I've seen, in my experience in TI, and something that I've been seeing shifting quite a bit actually as part of the university recruiting team, right? So, one of our values as a company is to thrive by being inclusive, where we create an environment where everyone can unlock their potential. And that's even more critical when you have multiple generations and different backgrounds, right? And I feel that's something that I have experienced on the interviews that we do and the new workforce coming into TI. So, I'm excited to be here and I'm looking forward to this panel.
Great, Miguel. We're glad to have you. And to bring us home, Lieutenant Colonel Nora de los Rios, can you do an introduction, please?
Hi, Hector. I'm sorry. I apologize about the inconvenience. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, CICI, for allowing us this opportunity to engage and motivate millennials and Gen Z seniors. It is an honor to be part of this panel and to show the audience that our voices matter and together we can. Juntos podemos. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Nora de los Rios, United States Air Force. 23 years ago, I was nobody. I was barely making to get money to eat. And then I found an advertisement to join the Air Force. I started as an enlisted person on the medical field, and thanks to my supervisors along the line, they trust me, they show me that together we can, and they support my idea to become an officer. So they opened the path for me, and for 19 years, I had been a cyberspace operator officer. I'm currently the commander of the 341st Recruiting Squadron in San Antonio, Texas, where we inspire, engage, and recruit the next generation of airmen and Space Force professionals. We find ordinary citizens who get transformed into extraordinary airmen and space professionals. I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys so you can see that together we can and that we have a voice. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good to have you. And I'm glad we're all resolved all the technical issues. This is going to be a great conversation. So to start us off, I would like to ask Rebecca to set a frame for us. What are some of the trends that you are seeing in your space that help us understand what is happening today with the next generation of professional leaders?
That's a great question, Hector. Thank you. And I'm afraid that perhaps in my excitement that you could hear me before, I never actually introduced who I am. I work for the American Petroleum Institute in our Regulatory and Economic Policy Division, and I direct all of our research and programs on workforce and education, particularly as it relates to our strategic allies, so groups like women and veterans and communities of color and labor unions. I am a researcher by training, and taking an analytical look at the data and the trends is so important. At API, everything that we do in this space is based on a really solid research foundation. We've done a series of quantitative and qualitative work with IHS, with the RAND Corporation, with many other partners to better understand what is happening in the workforce and the trends and the changes that we see coming. Most recently, we completed a study with IHS that is a detailed look at how technology is changing the way that we work, the nature of work, the types of job opportunities that we expect, and the types of skills that we need, and the demographic impact of those changes. That study projects that over the next 2 decades, there will be nearly 1.9 million job opportunities available in the oil, natural gas, and petrochemical industry. Interestingly, for this conversation, about 1.7 million of those are expected to be due to replacement requirements. So that is people who are retiring and leaving the workforce. You see this retiring wave not just in oil and gas, but in many industries. And in some ways, it has been sped up by the current public health crisis and the associated market conditions. The large number of retirees and the job opportunities that provides represents really an incredible opportunity for millions of future workforce in this Millennial and Gen Z that we're talking about generations, but also is a challenge for industry broadly to successfully and seamlessly fill those leadership positions in the industry and institutional knowledge that those seasoned workers will lead with. One other thing that I'd like to point out is the demographic impact there. So combined, women and people of color are expected to make up about 60% of those job opportunities over the coming decades. And for Hispanics in particular, are projected to be hired for about 31% of those total job opportunities. So we see the changing demographics in the country. We see the changing nature of work and type of work is there's an acceleration toward highly skilled and professional jobs enabled by technology changes, a transition away from basic labor and kind of semi-skilled labor classes. And we see the impact that will have and the millions of job opportunities that will be available. And so that is really setting the foundation for us as we think about who we need to reach out to and how to attract and retain the best available talent.
Yeah, that's a really helpful reflection as we're anticipating some of these positions opening up, also beginning to think about how do we begin to instill and build that pipeline to ensure that it's going to be more diverse and representative of the country. And that actually lends itself well to my next question, which is to Miguel. Miguel, in what ways is the private sector and companies like Texas Instruments preparing the work environment to help lend itself to be more appealing to this next generation of talent? And like Rebecca was mentioning earlier, particularly to this underrepresented category of talent.
Yeah, so it's a great question, Hector. And I'm assuming you guys can still hear me okay? Very good. Yeah, so, in TI over the past few years, I had the pleasure to be one of the university recruiting engineers or part of the university recruiting team. And, what's been very interesting for me is how the questions that I get from candidates, students essentially, right, has shifted over the last decade, right? In the past, it used to be a lot about salary, opportunity, and benefits. Today, that's still part of it. But then you start seeing more questions around work-life balance, questions around diversity and inclusiveness. They want more transparency. They want personal growth, right? Career development from their employees, right? So one of the things that we have done, TI specifically to shift to make it more appealing for that demographics is, first one, thinking of our campus, right? Over the last few years, we went over a complete renovation of the campus, going to more open spaces where we have more collaboration. A big portion of our hires are engineers, right? So we want that open communication, open engagement and collaboration. Things as simple as bringing in some ping pong tables, right? Having, coffee areas and things like that, just things that this new generation really values, right? And it makes it a more interesting place as well. We always had an open door policy, but now we're trying to make sure we have more transparency as well, right? As when we engage to our employees. We do have a new employee initiative where essentially for the employees in the first 5 years, right, they come in and they can collaborate or they can engage with people also entering the workforce, right? And they get things like training, they get things like discussions around what does it look to be successful in a company, right? And we can also answer questions to them. We have over 30 different diversity networks within TI, right? Based on faith, on background, culture, things like that, right? And it's something that we do feel it's valued with our new generation of employees as well. We offer rotation programs, right, where an employee can come in and try different things as well, right? And that's been something that has been very well received as well, right? The last thing I would say, specifically around, there are two more things that I would say. We have recently we talked about our values and our ambitions as a company, and that's something that when I go to interviews, I'm getting questions as well. Our passion as a company is really to make electronics affordable, make the world a better place by making electronics affordable through semiconductors, right? And when we talk about that and this new generation hear things, we want to be a neighbor you want to be proud of, right? That's something that resonates very well. We want to be more socially conscious. And that's something that this new generation really values as well. As far as underrepresented, and things like engaging on courageous conversations, we're living in a very interesting time right now, right, with some of the social issues that are impacting our nation, right? And we have had courageous conversation where we're bringing leaders within the company and outside leaders as well, and we engage on those conversations, right? We believe part of the solution is having a conversation around that and then start working together to make the world a better place, right? And as far as specific underrepresented communities, we go to conferences like the Hispanic Society of Engineers, right? The Black Society of MBAs as well, right? We recruit universities like UTEP and University of Puerto Rico, where I came from, right? And we're very we have a very targeted effort to make sure that we're bringing a lot of diversity into the company and make the company stronger that way.
Yeah, I really love your framing about engaging in courageous conversations. I think that really goes to the heart of setting the right environment and setting the right tone for the company in a way that is more inclusive of some of the challenging issues and topics that we're all grappling with. And I think an extension of setting the right environment is definitely having the right buy-in from the management and the way that the management deals and interacts with the potential new workforces that are coming in to the company. So my next question is for you, Juliet. How are managers adapting to this new reality, and what are they doing to be more intentional for managing and recruiting diverse multi-generational teams?
Sure, it's a really good question. So managers are adapting to the new reality very fast. I would say, especially in the environment that we're in right now, working remotely. I've seen a lot of open mind to change and getting to learn from the different generations and the skills and thought processes that they bring to the table. Managers are just really setting the opportunity of the gold mine that exists. Like, they're seeing the opportunity of this gold mine that exists to have 5 different generations of workers in their organization. And so in regards to what managers are doing to be more intentional for managing these multi-generational teams, I think it's very important to first understand that there's no one size fits all for managing a modern workforce, right? And it varies from company to industry. But they're like really thriving and being intentional to find the common ground and to capitalize on the individual skill sets that each individual will bring to the table, right? There's also been a large effort into being like intentional with relationship building, which has been really key. Millennials and Gen Zs are really known for wanting a lot of feedback and wanting to grow and to connect and to just feel like there's a higher purpose. And so creating a space for open dialogue and making it a priority to create a team culture that encourages open dialogue aids a lot in breaking down the generational barriers that come out of all these groups together. And in terms of recruiting, I would say that the intention begins at the table. So meaning when you look around the room, there's a representation of diverse multi-generational teams having this recruitment conversation. You know, the people you want to attract are also represented in the decision-making process. So that's something that's really been key right now. And it makes a really big difference in the message that you're sending out when recruiting, because every communication you send out speaks to your company culture and the priorities, right? So when you're having these discussions, we begin to understand each generation has a different value to offer, and you start seeing that every organization or business unit or maybe a position needs to be tailored when offering in recruitment. So, you know, all that to say is that companies are getting it right to be very thoughtful about their sourcing strategies to reach out for the candidate experience. And, you know, they're being very mindful that by planning this way, you're making sure that you're also diversifying the talent that you want to bring in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I loved your comment about intention begins at the table and how that sets the tone for recruiting and attracting talent. So shifting gears to the US military, let's talk about how the US military is thinking about the next generation of professional leaders and how the US Air Force is attracting a diverse set of talent, not only to attract, but also to retain a diverse workforce. So, Lieutenant Colonel, we'd love to hear from you on that piece.
Hey, thank you, Hector. You know, as I was listening here, my colleagues, it is funny how we had so many similarities, right? Who will think that the commercial sector is almost are the same in the military? So we are very intentional too. We know that our younger generations, as they are joining the military and they are going to ascend in rank and they are going to become our future leaders, they are going to be more diverse. They are going to be more flexible because this community, they had grown in an environment where there's a lot of rapid change in the world, right? They had to live through the global war of terrorism with the 9/11 attacks. They had to go through this pandemic. How many people that we have around on the workforce has to deal with these tragics, right? No many. So we're building a force that is more resilient. We understand that they were born with the computers on their side, right? That's part of the DNA. So we're looking to expand into that and we want them to help us bring this gap with the old technology, right? With the old people like me that we've been around for a while and we probably were not so used to be working with technology and all these toys. So these people is actually helping us break this gap, helping us making sure that we're taking this technology to the battlefield and to the humanitarian missions, right? Because many people, I think that's part of the stuff when you look at the diverse force that we have in the military, you can say that we probably don't have enough Hispanics, right? There are not enough Latinos. And the issue with that is like they probably join us, but the culture, we've been learning that based on the culture, they don't stay long enough to go to the highest rank because the way that we are raised. That personally happened to me, right? If you tell me on 2007, when I had my baby, I was ready to quit because I don't trust anybody to take care of my babies. Who better than me to take care of her? Nobody, right? But the community that we have in the Air Force, it helped me realize that it's not just me. There are friends around, there are the spouses or the coworkers that are gonna help us with that. So as we keep building our relationships and we have opportunities like this, we can spread the word to the people outside in the civilian sector to let them know that the military is like a civilian life, right? That you will have your support system, you can continue a career. You just have to have perseverance and keep fighting for what you want. You have to believe in yourself and keep doing what you want. Look for role models. Look for anybody. People doesn't have to be like you, right? They don't have to look exactly like you, but look for somebody else that is going to give you the support and encouragement to keep doing what is best for the nation. So, like you asked me, right? When you look around, you're going to see that the military, the demographics in the military and in the Air Force, we mirror the demographics in the United States. We have about the same proportion of representations. The issue that we have is on the different career fields. So we're looking in a way to be more intentional, like you guys were saying before. We're going to these niche places to find the pilots, the next generation of pilots that are diverse, that are Hispanics, that are African Americans, But how do we do that? That's not going to happen overnight, right? It will take time to build them. It will take time to motivate them to stay and to join us. And we just had to keep doing it. Never give up. So we tell people, never give up. The Air Force will never give up on you guys either. And we're with open arms waiting for everybody to come and become part of this family and enjoy the great life that we can live in here together. So to retain the force, like one of the last part of your question was how we're going to retain the force, right? So we realized that when we bring somebody in the military, we're bringing one person. We enlist the airmen, but we had to retain the family. So that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking to how to retain the family and motivate people to stay longer. So we do this intentionally by motivating people to, we invite them to the table to be part of us, to be part of the decision makers, so they have a voice. And then they have a pride, right? They have a stake on the game and they are going to be proud of that. And when you have that pride that you can share with your family is going to support you. They're going to want to stay with you, and hopefully we will get to keep them longer. You will not see all these changes overnight, right? Because it takes 20 years to make a general. But hopefully in the near future, we will have a complete diverse force at all the ranks and levels in the military that we could be very proud of it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that I appreciate your words of wisdom, and also really thankful for your service and all you're doing to help create a more diverse and inclusive workforce within our armed services. Some of you guys have already alluded to this, but I think it's especially important for us to call it out explicitly around the factors that are creating bottlenecks or barriers in creating opportunity in certain fields or in certain industries. So as we're thinking about what these factors are, can we get, and this is kind of open to everyone or anyone that wants to be answering it, what are some of those factors that are creating those bottlenecks, and what are the best pathways to overcome those barriers and to really ultimately create pathways for these multi-generations into these fields? And maybe I'll if whoever wants to take that, the question can just go ahead and speak.
I have some thoughts that immediately came to mind. Two of the main factors that I have seen in my work and that pan out in the research and also as we do our outreach and advocacy work. The first bottleneck would be awareness. So in some qualitative work that we did a few years ago, surveys and focus groups with women and people of color talking about their perceptions of employment in the oil and gas industry. With women, it turned out that only 3% of women had ever even applied to work in the industry. It's very hard to increase your numbers in a significant way when you have so few people who are applying. And of course, the next question then is, why do so few? The numbers were similar for people of color, but the response was that they didn't apply because they weren't aware of the opportunities. They didn't understand where they might fit in the oil and gas industry. They didn't understand the kinds of career opportunities that were available. They didn't think that their skills would be a good match. And so really it was this lack of understanding of the breadth and scope of opportunities that really span all education levels and all types of skills and all interest areas, that people weren't connecting, particularly women and people of color, weren't connecting their own interests and skills with what was offered in the industry. And so building that awareness and trying to help these underrepresented communities better understand how and where they fit is a huge challenge and opportunity that we are really focused on. The second bottleneck that I would point to is education and those education pathways. We did a study on STEM trends and degree pathways with the RAND Corporation a few years ago and found that your likelihood of working in oil and gas about doubles if you hold a bachelor's degree in a STEM field. And your likelihood increases 3 to 7 times if you hold a degree in a field that's specifically related to what we do in oil and gas. So something like chemical engineering or geophysics, for example. In that same study, we looked at demographics, and it turns out that men outnumber women about 4 to 1 in earning those degree types. and whites outnumber minorities about 3-1. And so as we talk about the best pathways that lead into the industry, we have to focus on making sure that we are supporting women and people of color in these education pathways, that they have the best chance for transition into these types.
Yeah, so those are really, really great insights. We're going to be moving into Q&A from the audience in just a few more minutes, but before that, I want to try to get one more question in. And I want to center a question around shaping the leaders of now and the leaders for the future, right? So what are some of the challenges that millennials and Gen Z will face as leaders in the immediacy and in the future as they're entering and breaking into these roles? Again, this is open to anyone who wants to take a stab at it. So
I'll add some perspective from my side. I think a couple of things come to mind. First one, really being around cultural intelligence, right? And just being purposeful about as you're bringing in the new workforce and you're starting to lead multiple generations, diverse teams, right? You want to make sure you have a good, not only cultural awareness, but cultural intelligence, right? And what that entails, just creating an environment where people are going to be willing and open to share their ideas, understand that they will be heard, and really just have the opportunity to influence strategy engagements and the future of the company and the group, right? I think that's one thing that comes to my mind. The second piece is, and this is more on the tactical side of things, but just even how you engage with your employees becomes very different, right? And I have personally seen that, from just the type of conversations that I have to be able to open up a discussion, just retaining people, what really clicks and what really is important for those generations or cultural backgrounds becomes extremely important as well, right? So, I would say those are the main things from my perspective that not necessarily barriers, but things that you need to make sure you are aware and you put some effort into understanding those.
wonderful. So we are ready to start taking some questions from the audience. I see we have a long pipeline of questions coming in. So I suggest that for the sake of time and so we can try to get as many of these in, we transition over to some of the questions from the audience. I'll read these aloud, and whoever wants to take a pass at the question, feel free to respond. The first question is from Nina, and Nina's asking, today's generation is the most racially and ethnically diverse generation ever. How are employers preparing for a workforce that values diversity?
So if I can speak to that if you want to, if you allow me to.
That'd be great, please.
So we actually value that immensely. Like we understand that a diverse force is what makes us stronger. I think we're one of the strongest military in the world because of that, because we have embraced diversity a long time ago. That is not new to us. And we actually are really thrilled to see that the whole United States and the whole world is coming into this idea too, right? When you see the Millennials and Gen Zers, that is totally correct. They have been growing together with multiple cultures at the same time. And that's going to make their transition into our forces a lot easier because they will be able to adjust and share experiences faster and together. And by bringing at the table, like somebody said, I think it was Julia that said that before, right? We bring them at the table, we have conversations, we include them, right? We're making them part of the decision-making process so they understand that their ideas, their values, and all that they represent is helping us be stronger and be a better force to protect our nation.
Thank you for that. Anybody else want to add anything to that answer, or should we move on to the next question? Great. So the next question is coming to us from Liya, who's asking, do different generations expect and receive different benefits from employers? What benefits do we anticipate Gen Z and millennials would expect or require?
That's a really interesting question, and I think that one of the things that we see is that younger generations, Millennial and Gen Z, and to Nina's question, where she rightly noted that these are very diverse generations. Things that are important are not just your traditional, being paid well, although that is still important, but wanting to do something that matters, which is not specifically a benefit that's offered, but I think there's this understanding that's coming in industry and within companies, that this generation of workers wants to participate in making the world a better place. And they're trying to offer opportunities to do that and connect the things we do to really how we're improving our communities and how we are benefiting the world. We want to like what we do, and we also want what we do to matter. In terms of specific benefits, one that is interesting right now to talk about is this flex and remote work opportunities. And so for me, in my own personal experience, I actually live and work in Salt Lake City, Utah, though API is based in Washington, D.C. And I moved out here to Salt Lake about 5 years ago and have been working remotely ever since. My husband took a job at a law firm here, and API said to me, why don't you keep working remotely from a home office and we'll see how it goes. And I think that was so important for me because I love my job and I wanted to keep doing it, but I was moving, and I've so appreciated the flexibility that offers, being able to work remotely, as I've had. I have young children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and this flexible work and work-life balance question is important, and it's really important for these younger generations. And I think you see more and more companies and industries recognizing that and trying to be flexible in the way that they allow people to do what they need to do for their families and also contribute in a meaningful way in their careers.
And I think that answer, thank you for that answer, Rebecca. I think that answer lends itself really nicely segues nicely into the next question, which we're getting in from Chris, which is, with the pandemic that we are currently in, remote working has become the new reality. What other drastic changes are on the horizon for the future of work?
If I can make a comment on that one, that's a very, very interesting question. And it's one that I just had a very interesting experience this summer. Summertime is the time for internships, right? And in TI, we have a strategy of hiring, new college grads, right, as part of our workforce. So when this whole pandemic really started, we quickly realized that the internship program, the traditional internship program, was not going to be successful. It was not going to be able to work. So, as a company, we adapted, and we actually were able to get computer equipment. We were able to set up accounts for everybody. They stay wherever they were, and we continue our internship program remotely. And I had the opportunity to talk over a dozen of our internships actually this summer. And the resounding feedback that I got was, number one, they were really appreciative of the flexibility that was shown. Number two, they felt that the internship was an experience where they were actually able to learn quite a bit. And from our side as well, we were able to hire some pretty nice or pretty good engineers as well, right? So, it's a very interesting time, and interesting times calls for different approaches, right? And I think industries and companies are looking at how to do that, and I felt that this was a great way to adapt to this situation and still maintain meaningful experience for the incoming workforce as well.
Yeah, if actually I can add on to that, very similar. I think that we've actually expanded now in our internship and educational programs to people that traditionally would not be able to have moved to DC to take a job out because most of the agencies are out here, right? And because we're all virtual settings, we've been able to cast people from different locations to still have this great opportunity and be able to grow and expand because everything is virtual at this moment. And there's been, waves of thinking, well, can we permanently make these positions virtual? Do they have to stay this way forever?
Lots of open questions, and lots of looking into that glass ball to try to determine what's on the horizon. I think any of our predictions are as good as any other, but we'll see what the future holds, and that actually kind of helps us transition into this next question. What are employers doing to attract more diverse candidates that are a bit more experienced than people who are straight out of college? So I'm thinking the question here is around how are we engaging, how are we ensuring that diversity and inclusion is not just going to be at the core of early career college recruiting, but also in the broader, more experienced pipeline of companies?
Yeah, I think for at least from my side, the way that I look at that is we do participate on as part of organization or conferences where it's not only open to new college grads as well, right? Society of Hispanic professional engineers, for example, and things like that, right? So our recruiting strategy is not only focused on diversity for colleges or for new college grads, but also just in general the workforce as well, right? So I think that's one of the things that we're very purposeful around as we're going hiring engineers. Not only from college, right? We're also making sure that we have more diverse, underrepresented communities as well included as part of that process.
I think too that there's a retention aspect of that. So I know the question was specifically about recruiting, but to Nora's earlier point that you see a lot of these individuals who leave before they have time to become a general, that it takes 20 years to become a general, right? Thinking about how we keep the diverse individuals that we've already recruited is a really important piece of that, and that we can develop them over time. I know in the oil and natural gas industry, one of the things that they do very well is moving people around to give them different experiences in different lines of the business. I work with a number of people who have gone from engineering to HR to marketing to public relations to government relations and back to engineering again. And I think providing opportunities and being really intentional about it, about providing those opportunities and helping people see a viable pathway and grow in their career and professional opportunities within an organization or an industry is really important. The other thing I would say in terms of bringing in people at a mid-level, senior level, bringing new people in and making sure that's diverse talent, is we really look for those transferable skills. And so critical thinking skills and analysis skills that the fresh perspective of someone coming from another company or really even another industry can be so valuable. And so bringing in those individuals that have experience in other ways, but that aligns very well and can be applied to the things that we are doing is something that is really important for attracting and retaining mid and senior level.
I love that point, and I think it also lends itself nicely to the question we got from Ruben here, which is about the importance of continued education throughout one's career. And the question is how important is it for employers to offer continued education, training, and self-development opportunities? He mentions new skills are more important than ping pong, which is true. So what are ways that you're seeing this in your industries, in your spaces? How are your companies contributing and investing in continued education within your workplaces?
So Hector, if you allow me.
Please go ahead.
In the military, we actually invest heavily on it. And we had two paths that we actually get education on, right? So we are experts on our fields, and the military will train us very well, and we had to continue developing and keep maturing on it. And the other one is leadership skills. So like my family will make fun of me because every time they talk to me, I'm at the next class of leadership, right? We never finish learning, we're always developing, and we do this for everybody. It's like every opportunity. So like Rebecca say, take those opportunities and embrace them, because you will always keep it. Doesn't matter with what company you are, that's gonna be on your brains, and you're gonna move on and be a better person in the future too.
If I could add as well, I think, even, there's the leadership development, which is absolutely critical and is something that I see, companies investing on. There's also people, for example, I can talk specifically about my case. I was hired with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and my company paid for my master's in business, for example, right? And that, giving that flexibility and giving that opportunity to not only develop your career, but even your education as well, is absolutely critical. And it's something that I think the industry is doing and will need to continue to do, to be honest, in order to maintain our workforce competitive and up to where we need to be.
Yeah,
And going
go
ahead.
One more addition to that, I just wanted to say that, also when you're thinking of different hiring practices, like it's expanding so much out of the box in the sense that people are partnering, or companies are partnering with like coding programs or high school partnerships, or community colleges to help bring in talent at a very young age and being able to grow and develop them while they're working as well.
And Juliet, I don't know if you have any other additional thoughts around our final question, which was actually around K-12 education and how can K-12 schools and universities better prepare young Americans to enter the workforce that is increasingly virtual, that is increasingly demanding digital skills?
Yeah, partnerships, 100%. I can speak from my personal experience. My high school partnered with an organization that did a senior project, and essentially the company works with a cohort of different groups built off, and you are pitching a way to help reinvent a city. And they give you this plot type of story as anybody would be able to, I guess, do a project management type of thing. And it's very competitive in the sense that you work in a group, and it's kind of like a real world experience, if you get me. So engaging younger folks with the career fields and the type of work that can be done, and partnering that stuff to help bring light to something that maybe they didn't know of, and also to ignite that light bulb and that drive maybe that they may have that can come into your organization as well.
Wonderful. Those are all fantastic thoughts and great answers. Thank you guys for helping to entertain all these questions from the audience. We're now going to invite you all to give us some closing thoughts, and we're going to try to limit these to just 1 minute per panelist. What is one either word of wisdom or reflection that is centered on today's conversation that you want to leave the audience with? And we'll start with Rebecca.
I would say this is a long game, and it matters. And we are doing things that need to happen now to make a difference now. But I love that K through 12 question, because it's also about making meaningful and lasting change for the future. And it's not just a question of millennials and Gen Zs, but my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old, and the skills that they will be developing throughout their life, to be able to contribute in a meaningful way to their communities and to society around them. And for us in the oil and natural gas industry, we are really at the heart of solving some of the greatest challenges that the world is facing in terms of providing affordable and accessible and increasingly clean and safe and sustainable energy. And to do that, we have to have the best and the brightest. And we know that that comes from a strong, diverse group of workforce and workers. And so really it's a business imperative, and it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Rebecca. Lieutenant Colonel Nora de los Rios, please.
Yeah, I want to thank CCHI again for inviting us, and I want to tell everybody to please be open to ideas. Be open to apply yourself to whatever you want to do. Like Rebecca said it at the beginning, many people doesn't know that there are opportunities out there. Don't disqualify yourself. Apply for the jobs and let them tell you you don't qualify. Look for those opportunities, look for training. Once you are on the organization, stay on it, move on, accept any movement that they offer you, because what we're doing, we want a diverse force, but we want diverse talents too, right? If you're doing the same job over and over, you're not gonna have a diverse talent, and that's not gonna let you progress. So accept the movements, keep going to different places. That's gonna expand your horizons, your culture, and you're gonna be better suited for the future. I want to tell all the Hispanics and all the women over there that are over there. If you want to join the Air Force, if you want to join any force, join it, try it, apply for it, go do it, because you and your family deserve it. Together we can, you have a voice, and we want to hear it too.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Miguel.
Well, first of all, thank you for participate for the invitation on this. And what I would say is, find your passion and be purposeful. Be purposeful about achieving your goals. Be purposeful about speaking up. Purposeful about expressing your ideas and expressing your thoughts. Right. You can achieve whatever you want, and all you have to do is find that passion and really drive it and be purposeful. So that will be my last comment.
Thank you, Miguel. Juliet?
Sure. What I would tell my fellow millennials and Gen Zs out there is to just bet on yourself, trust your gut, and don't be scared to reach out for help or to ask for questions. Use your network, use your social medias. It'll help and go a long way to achieve what it is you want to.
Thank you, Juliet. Yeah, some quick reflections from my end. I really appreciated the conversation and all the points you all brought to the table. I really loved the centering on a new workforce, or building a new workforce that is really anchored on equity and the importance and value of putting that at the forefront as we're beginning to build a new workforce that's going to be centered on millennials and Gen Zers. Love the piece around encouraging courageous conversations and the power that has to set the tone in the workplace. I also really enjoyed the piece around the integration beginning at the table and how that can lend itself to setting the right set of values, putting forth the right set of values around purpose and making sure that employment and what these individuals are working towards really matters, that they can find meaning and significance in their work. And that inevitably will help set the right culture, and with a little bit of awareness and effort to get people more proximate and shift perceptions and increase exposure, we can really unleash the potential of this generation. So with that, I would like to thank our wonderful panelists for this thoughtful discussion. Juliet, thank you. Miguel, Lieutenant Colonel, Rebecca, thank you all so much for your time and lending your voices to this conversation. Thank you to our audience for tuning in and listening. Please keep tweeting about the conference at #CHCIHHM20. We encourage you to attend our closing plenary today, Key Immigration Policy Issues for the Next 4 Years, at 3:15 p.m. Also, please join our virtual gala celebration on Monday evening, September 21st, from 6 to 8 p.m. Once you register for the conference, you will also be able to register for the gala, and nothing more to do than just log back in. So thank you all. It was great to be in conversation with you.